White House tells Jim Acosta his suspension may be permanent after restraining order expires. Oh man, he can't do any of that hard-hitting journalism that he's never done. The Trump administration plans to again revoke CNN correspondent Jim Acosta's White House press credentials after a restraining order imposed Friday by a federal judge expires, CNN reported late Sunday. Members of the MIC resistance everywhere will pretend that this is actually a struggle for press freedom, while they're ignoring Julian Assange, a guy who has just published the truth and now is literally trying, the state is literally trying to execute the man. But instead, we're focusing on this shouting match between Donald Trump and Jim Acosta, which actually wasn't even much of a shouting match. This is just political theater between two rich people that are mad at each other. And this is just a political stunt on all sides. The White House pulled Acosta press credentials after a November 7th news conference, during which President Trump called the reporter a rude, terrible person when Acosta persisted in asking Trump a question about Russia. In response, CNN filed a lawsuit. USA Today backed it up. So did Fox News, demanding the return of his credentials. I'm getting tired just by reciting this political theater bullshit. Speaking of political theater bullshit, here's another expert, Adam Schiff. He got in a little thing with Donald Trump where Donald Trump called him Adam Shit. And you know what I said about that whole thing? I said, look, when it comes to Donald Trump versus Adam Schiff, I don't like corporatist, opportunist parasites posing as show business wannabes. And Donald Trump's pretty awful too. Adam Schiff is terrible. Donald Trump is even more terrible. You don't have to pick between them. You can acknowledge there's no good guys in this scenario, that this is just political theater and it's just garbage. Adam Schiff desperately wishes he was in show business. He loves that Trump Russia has given him his 15 minutes of fame. He stands for absolutely nothing. He doesn't do anything in regards to better policy here in California. He does nothing for his district. He is just an opportunist parasite. Donald Trump is no different. You don't need to pick between them. You don't. You don't need to make it out like Jim Acosta is actually... Jim Acosta is not some hard-hitting journalist. Jim Acosta loves access. He is part of access journalism. He is a blank suit. The headline should have been, when the White House told all the reporters to turn off their cameras, and they all did, the headline shouldn't have been, look at the White House being mean to these reporters. The headline should have been, every reporter in that room should be fired. Because authority told them to turn off their cameras, and they did. They're not journalists. They're fake. That's why there's people that watch this show that expect a comedian who does a live streaming show where people send him articles and write comics about his talking cat. People expect that guy to have higher standards than actual journalists do. Because journalism is so far in the shitter. That's how bad it is. Jim Acosta's not a good guy. Trump's not a good guy. There are no good guys. It's theater. It's a game. It's a scam. And if you give a shit whether or not Jim Acosta gets this credential back, you're worrying about the wrong issue. You should be worried about Julian Assange. They're trying to execute Julian Assange. They are literally trying to execute this man. He is sick and he needs help. He hasn't had sunlight in years. He's cooped up in an embassy. They are literally trying to kill this guy. And he's guilty of the crime of journalism. That's what he's done. He's done journalism. Never had to retract a story. That's a press freedom story. Not Jim Acosta and his bullshit shouting match with Trump where they got mad at each other. Who gives a shit? At the end of the day, they're both concerned with access. At the end of the day, they love Trump because he helps their ratings. And Trump loves the media because he can play him like a fiddle. The battle between Trump and the media is not a story of struggle. It is a love story disguised in political theater. So I don't give a shit what happens with Jim Acosta's pass. I don't give a shit what happens between him and Trump. It's all theater, and you don't have to pick a bad guy. You don't have to do it.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? follow at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your